5:17 local time, somewhere in the North Atlantic, the sea is calm. Sea state 2. Visibility is clear. On the flight deck of a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier, yellow shirts guide an F/A-18 into position. Deep below, reactor output remains steady. Radar screens show nothing unusual. Then the calm breaks. Con, sonar, transient spike, bearing 087, high-speed cavitation. The voice is steady. No panic, no emotion, just information. Inside the Combat Information Center, every eye moves toward the acoustic display. The signal is not marine life. It is not surface clutter. It is mechanical, powerful, and sustained. Con, sonar, additional transients, multiple. Standby, confirming 3 separate screws. Fast movers. A short pause follows. Inbound underwater tracks. General quarters sounds immediately. Red lights flash through the carrier's passageways. Watertight doors begin sealing, one after another. Sailors move quickly, but with control. No shouting, no confusion. They have trained for this moment again and again. Now it is happening. The tactical action officer steps forward. Range? Estimated 9,000 yards. High speed, bearing steady, 3 tracks converging. On the surface, the carrier holds its course for 3 more seconds, just long enough to refine the picture. Then the order comes. Helm, right full rudder, flank speed. A Nimitz-class carrier is more than 100,000 tons of steel, machinery, and momentum. It does not turn like a smaller ship. Every change in direction is a contest with physics. But even a small shift can upset a guidance solution. The escorts move first. 2 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers screening the carrier's swing outward, their propellers cutting hard into the Atlantic. Behind them, towed sonar arrays stretch through the water, searching for confirmation. Tayo, confirm classification. Acoustic analysis races across the screen. The signature is not American. It is not Allied. Blade rate and pattern match known Russian profiles. Guidance logic likely engaged. This means the contacts are not simply following noise, they are following the ship. Time remaining? Under 3 minutes. At the carrier's stern, the first layer of underwater defense deploys. A N/SLQ-25 Nixie decoys hit the water and stream behind the hull. They generate a stronger acoustic signature, louder and more tempting than the carrier itself. The goal is simple: convince the incoming system to choose the wrong target. Below the surface, the geometry tightens. Track 1 shifting, possible decoy acquisition. For 1 brief second, the room seems to breathe. Then sonar cuts back in. Track 2 holding center mass. Track 3 still inbound. No deviation. At least one of the incoming systems still has a clean path. Inside the CIC, the commanding officer keeps his voice low. Maintain formation integrity. Record everything. Because this launch did not come from far away. It came from inside the defensive screen. Con, sonar, new contact, bearing 091. Submerged, depth 150 meters. There it is, a submarine. Close, too close. The nearest destroyer sends active sonar pulses through the water column. The ocean answers with sharp metallic returns. Submarine contact firm, acoustic profile consistent with Russian design. No one needs to say the rest out loud. This was intentional. On the forward escort, vertical launch cells open. Standby ASROC. A rocket-assisted anti-submarine system ignites, climbs fast into the gray morning sky, then arcs down toward the submarine's last known position. Moments later, a heavy underwater pressure pulse rolls through the Atlantic like distant thunder. The carrier shudders, not from a direct hit, but from the force moving through the sea around it. Range 6,000 yards, 1 inbound veering. Decoy appears effective. 1 has turned, another has not. 4,000 yards. The carrier continues its turn, its enormous hull leaning into the maneuver. Every degree matters now. On the flight deck, aircraft remain chained down. Nobody speaks. Above the surface, the ocean still looks almost peaceful. Below it, 3 fast-moving contacts are closing on the largest ship in the strike group. 3,000 yards. The escorts tighten their arc. The submarine is trying to slip deeper, but it launched from inside the screen. Getting out will not be easy. 2,000 yards. The final inbound track holds course. The window is shrinking to seconds. At 0520 local time, the North Atlantic is no longer quiet. Con, sonar, inbound tracks now 5,000 yards. 2 holding steady, 1 oscillating. On the bridge, the helm responds at once. Right full rudder applied. Coming to new course. The carrier's bow begins its slow, powerful swing to starboard. At flank speed, a Nimitz-class hull can exceed 30 knots, but acceleration does not happen instantly. Every second is measured against the distance left on the display. In the Combat Information Center, the tactical action officer studies the changing solution. Recommend evasive pattern delta. Continue decoy deployment. From the stern, more acoustic countermeasures stream into the Atlantic. The Nixie arrays vibrate and send controlled noise into the water, creating a maze of sound designed to confuse the seeker. Below the surface, the first inbound contact hesitates. Track 1 is drifting. Bearing shift, 10 degrees. It is taking the decoy. Track 2, no deviation. Still holding center mass. That one is different. More disciplined. It may be using active guidance, not just following the wake. If that is true, it can search again, correct itself, and reacquire the carrier. Track 3 lost momentarily. Stand by. Lost does not mean gone. Lost means unpredictable. The nearest escort, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, turns directly into the threat axis, putting itself between the carrier and the inbound track. It is not hesitation. It is doctrine. The screen exists to shield the carrier, even when that means moving closer to danger. Destroyer 1 deploying countermeasure rocket. From the destroyer's deck, a compact anti-torpedo interceptor launches and cuts toward the water. It is built for one purpose: meet the incoming system before it reaches the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, the range calls continue. 3,500 yards. The submarine contact remains active. Sub bearing 091. Increasing depth, now 200 meters. The Russian boat is diving, trying to slip beneath the thermal layer, where sound bends, returns distort, and sonar tracking becomes harder. But it launched from inside the carrier group's defensive geometry. There is no clean escape route. Recommend second ASROC. Approved. Another vertical launch cell opens. A rocket-assisted torpedo erupts upward, its motor flare bright against the morning light. Seconds later, it arcs over and drops into the Atlantic, searching for the submarine's last acoustic trace. Below the surface, pressure waves spread through the water. Track 1 decoy engagement confirmed. A low underwater thud registers across the sonar display. The first inbound system has committed to the false target. No damage. Track 2 now 2,000 yards. This is the one that matters. On the carrier, damage control teams are already in position. Fire crews stand ready with breathing gear. Flooding control equipment is staged near vulnerable compartments. No one waits to find out what happens next. Interceptor away. The escort's anti-torpedo round enters the water at speed. Unlike the inbound system, it is designed for a short, direct intercept. Range 1,500 yards. The carrier continues turning, screws churning hard, its massive hull trying to complicate the predicted path. Track 3 reacquired, bearing shifted, possible reacquisition on main hull. That means 2 threats may still be active. 1,000 yards. Inside the CIC, the voices remain calm. Brace for shock. The interceptor closes first. Underwater, a powerful blast fills the sonar display with white noise. Possible intercept on Track 2, but the noise field hides the answer. Track 2, stand by, stand by. The seconds stretch longer than they should. Then, sonar comes back. Track 2, no longer inbound, likely neutralized. A quiet breath moves through the compartment. Controlled, brief, no celebration. Track 3, 800 yards and closing. The final inbound system is now close enough that even a near pass could damage plating, shafts, or critical systems. The carrier leans harder into the turn. Deploy additional countermeasures. Another decoy splashes into the Atlantic, sending out a stronger acoustic signature than the carrier's own hull. Underwater, the track begins to waver. Track 3 showing oscillation. It is confused, pulled between targets. 500 yards. The second escort activates its own defensive system. Interceptor 2 away. The round enters the water and dives toward the last inbound track. 400 yards. The CIC goes silent except for the range calls. 300. Then a heavy underwater blast erupts short of the carrier's hull. The shockwave strikes like a hammer, rattling consoles and vibrating the deck beneath their boots. The carrier shudders, then holds. Shock absorbed. No immediate flooding alarms. Sonar confirms the result. Track 3 terminated. 3 inbound systems. 3 defeated. But the submarine is still there. Subcontact still active, bearing 088, speed reduced. The Russian boat attempted a saturation launch from inside the defensive perimeter. It failed to reach the carrier, but it has not been removed from the fight. Now the hunt begins. At 0522 local time, the final pressure wave fades through the hull. Consoles settle. Overhead piping stops humming. The carrier steadies on its new course. Damage control report. The reports come in, one section at a time. No flooding, frame sections 120 through 180. No propulsion casualty, no fire, no structural breach. 3 inbound systems were launched. None reached the hull, but the engagement is not over. Con, sonar. Submarine contact still active. Bearing 088, speed decreasing, depth 300 meters. The Russian boat is either damaged or moving with extreme caution. Either way, it remains inside the strike group's defensive envelope. The commanding officer does not pause. Shift to prosecution. With one word, the mission changes from survival to control. On the flight deck, the first MH-60R Seahawk is already spinning up. Its rotors cut into the Atlantic wind as the crew chief gives the final signal. This is not a routine patrol launch. This is a hunter launch. Seahawk 1 airborne. The helicopter lifts cleanly from the deck and banks toward the destroyer screen. Beneath its fuselage is everything needed for undersea tracking: sonobuoys, sensors, and Mk-54 lightweight torpedoes. Below the surface, the submarine continues its descent. Subdepth now 350 meters, altering course south. The submarine is trying to break contact, using the confusion from shockwaves, decoys, and acoustic noise as cover. But the escorts are already tightening the net. Two Arleigh Burke-class destroyers form a narrowing arc around the carrier, their towed sonar arrays stretched wide through the Atlantic. Active sonar begins again. Not random, not rushed. Controlled pulses sent with purpose, designed to strip away any remaining chance of concealment. Contact regained. Bearing steady. The submarine cannot outrun the geometry now. It launched from inside the carrier screen, and that decision has trapped it. Ahead of it is not open ocean. It is layered detection, moving steel, aircraft overhead, and a strike group fully awake. Seahawk 1, deploy pattern Alpha. 200 feet above the Atlantic, the MH-60R Seahawk banks into position. One by one, cylindrical sonobuoys drop from the aircraft and strike the water. Each buoy activates almost instantly, feeding acoustic data back to the helicopter and into the strike group's combat network. Within seconds, the ocean has been divided into a listening grid. Seahawk 1 has contact, submarine confirmed, depth 380 meters, speed 15 knots. The Russian boat is slowing. That can mean damage, or it can mean preparation. Recommend weapon release. Approved. The Seahawk banks slightly and releases a Mark 54 lightweight torpedo. It enters the Atlantic cleanly and begins its search pattern. Passive at first, listening, then active, sending out its own pulse and building a picture of the target space. Inside the carrier's combat information center, every movement appears on the display. Weapon in the water. The submarine reacts immediately. Sub increasing speed, deploying countermeasures. Below the surface, false signatures bloom around the submarine. Acoustic decoys, bubble clouds, and noise generators spread through the water, all designed to pull the incoming weapon away from the real hull. Mark 54 adjusting. Tracking. Tracking. Then the sonar display flashes with interference. Possible close-range underwater blast. Subcontact unstable. It is not a final confirmation, but it was close. Submarine slowing rapidly. Depth fluctuating. The Russian captain is fighting to regain control. Seahawk 2 airborne. A second helicopter lifts from the carrier deck and turns toward the search area, extending the acoustic net. More sonobuoys hit the water, expanding the grid and reducing the submarine's options. Subcontact regained, bearing 092, speed 5 knots. 5 knots is not escape speed. Seahawk 1, second weapon authorized. Another Mark 54 drops from the helicopter and enters the Atlantic. It dives, searches, and begins to close. Sub attempting hard turn, depth now 400 meters. But the Atlantic here is not a bottomless hiding place. There is no easy route beneath the search pattern, no clean path away from the destroyers, no gap in the acoustic net. Weapon tracking steady. The seconds stretch, then a second underwater blast rolls across the sonar picture, stronger and closer than before. Sonar confirms major structural noise, metallic breakup, air release, contact fragmenting. Debris signatures begin rising through the water column. A thin oil trace appears on the surface. Then comes silence. Con, sonar, no active propulsion, no maneuvering, no coherent contact. The Russian submarine is no longer moving as a controlled platform. The carrier holds steady while helicopters continue orbiting overhead, verifying the field from multiple angles. 3 underwater weapons were launched at a U.S. aircraft carrier. None reached the hull, and the platform that launched them is now silent beneath the Atlantic. Inside the CIC, no one celebrates. There is only procedure. Log time of final underwater blast. Preserve sonar record. Because this was not just a successful defense. It was a live confrontation between two major military powers, measured in minutes, decided in seconds, and controlled by training, discipline, and geometry. Above the surface, the Atlantic looks unchanged. Below it, the engagement has ended. At 05:27 local time, the ocean is calm again. But no one in the strike group assumes the threat is gone. Con, sonar, multiple debris returns, oil trace confirmed, no propulsion noise. The first Russian submarine is likely disabled. Likely is not enough. Expand search pattern. Assume secondary contact until proven otherwise. Carrier strike group doctrine does not celebrate. It verifies. The two Arleigh Burke-class escorts widen their arc, their screws cutting disciplined lines through the water. Their towed arrays stretch farther aft, sweeping for any acoustic signature that does not belong. Because one submarine may not be the whole story. Inside the Combat Information Center, analysts begin replaying the launch geometry. Initial bearings confirm firing solution from inside the perimeter. That means the Russian boat either slipped through the outer screen undetected or used environmental conditions to mask its approach. Review thermal layer data. Reconstruct approach vector. Now the question is bigger than the submarine itself. It is how it got that close. Overhead, Seahawk 1 remains on station, flying low over the search area. Its crew deploys more sonobuoys in a wider lattice, expanding the acoustic net beyond the debris field. Seahawk 1 reports negative secondary contact. Seahawk 2 shifts north and lowers its dipping sonar into the Atlantic. The transducer slips beneath the surface. A pulse moves through the water, controlled and powerful. The ocean answers. Nothing. Negative contact, North Quadrant. The carrier holds steady speed. Flight operations remain paused, but ready to resume. Deep inside the ship, damage control teams continue their inspections through engineering spaces, checking for hidden stress from the pressure waves that rolled through the hull. Reactor compartments nominal, shaft alignment within tolerance. The carrier is intact, but the strike group commander does not lower the alert level. Maintain condition 1. Continue ASW until cleared. That means anti-submarine readiness stays at maximum. Every sensor remains active. Every helicopter stays fueled. Every escort remains prepared. At 0534 local time, a faint acoustic anomaly appears. Con, sonar, transient, northeast quadrant, bearing 035. The Combat Information Center tightens again. Classify. A few seconds pass. Biologic, likely marine life. The tension does not disappear. It only changes shape. Because the submarine that launched 3 inbound systems at the carrier was not acting at random. It had entered the formation, reached firing position, and made its move from inside the defensive screen. That means planning. That means surveillance. That means someone knew where the carrier would be. Request P-8 support. Far beyond the horizon, a Boeing P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft is redirected toward the strike group's position. From altitude, its radar sweeps wide sections of the Atlantic, while its onboard systems begin processing data from the sonobuoy fields below. This is no longer about one ship against one submarine. Now the entire network is awake. By 5:42 local time, the oil slick has expanded. The debris pattern matches a major hull failure. Small pieces begin reaching the surface, composite fragments, insulation, sections of metal plating. Photograph and mark coordinates. Every fragment matters, every bearing matters, every detail becomes evidence. The P-8 reports clear surface lanes within 20 nautical miles. No additional submarine contacts detected. The Seahawk crews begin confirmation passes, lowering dipping sonar at wider and wider distances from the debris field. Nothing. The strike group gradually shifts from active pursuit to controlled overwatch. ASROC systems are safed. Helicopters rotate back to refuel and rearm. But readiness does not drop. Because in naval warfare, one of the most dangerous moments comes right after everyone thinks the danger has passed. At 0555 local time, the final acoustic sweeps confirm silence. Cons, sonar, no propulsion signatures, no cavitation, area clear. The commander gives the order. Resume primary mission profile. Maintain enhanced ASW posture. On the flight deck, crews begin moving again. Aircraft are repositioned. Catapult teams prepare to relaunch combat air patrol. The carrier never stopped moving. It never stopped projecting presence. 3 inbound systems were launched at the center of a U.S. carrier strike group. None reached the hull. 1 submarine did not leave the area. And the response did not end in confusion or panic. It ended in controlled confirmation. Above the Atlantic, the early sun begins to brighten the sky. Below the surface, the water holds what remains of a mission that miscalculated the strike group's response by only seconds. On the carrier's bridge, there is no celebration. Only timestamps, only reconstructed vectors, only one quiet conclusion. Inside a U.S. carrier strike group, there is no such thing as a single move. There is only layered response, and the search continues until nothing answers back. At 6:05 local time, the Atlantic looks unchanged. Low swells, a clean horizon, no smoke, no flames, no visible damage. But inside the strike group, everything has changed. Secure from general quarters. Maintain modified ASW posture. The announcement moves through the carrier's passageways. Watertight doors reopen in sequence. Red lighting fades back to normal. Sailors return to their stations, but their movements are slower now, more deliberate. 3 inbound systems were launched at a United States aircraft carrier. None reached it. That fact will go into the official logs. It will not be announced to the world. Inside the Combat Information Center, sonar recordings are already being archived. Preserve full acoustic record from 0515 through 0535. Every transient, every cavitation spike, every pressure echo. Those files will move through classified channels and be studied frame by frame. Blade rates will be compared. Propulsion signatures will be examined. Guidance behavior will be reconstructed. Because surviving the moment is only part of the mission. Understanding how it happened is the rest. On the flight deck, operations resume in controlled phases. An F/A-18 taxis forward. Catapult steam rolls into the cool Atlantic air. Within minutes, combat air patrol is airborne again. Not because the sky became the threat, because posture matters. A carrier strike group does not remain still for long. Below deck, engineering teams finish their structural surveys. Hull stress within acceptable tolerance. No microfractures detected in primary bulkheads. Shaft bearings nominal. The underwater pressure waves were significant, but the carrier was built for this environment. Layered steel, compartmentalized design, redundant systems. Damage control did not have to contain flooding today, but they were ready. At 0618 local time, a Boeing P-8 Poseidon completes its final surveillance sweep over the debris field. Coordinates are confirmed. No secondary contacts are detected. The escorts return to their standard screen around the carrier. Arleigh Burke-class destroyers cutting precise lanes through the Atlantic. Their sonar remains active, but the rhythm is different now. Measured, watchful, because the ocean may look calm, but it does not forget. On the carrier's bridge, the commanding officer reviews the timeline. 517, first underwater threat detected. 518, evasive maneuver initiated. 520, defensive interceptors deployed. 522, final pressure event. 527, pursuit authorized. 534, hostile contact no longer active. Minutes, not hours. That is the margin modern naval warfare lives inside. There were no warning shots, no speeches, no public display. A submarine moved inside a carrier screen and launched 3 underwater systems toward the center of the formation. The answer was not chaos. It was geometry, speed, and discipline. Below deck, in the ready rooms, the helicopter crews debrief in low voices. Sensor operators replay thermal layers and sonobuoy patterns. Pilots review release points and timing for the Mark 54 drops. No one raises their voice. There is only procedure. First engagement, close range effect. Second engagement, confirmed structural failure. Professional, precise, clinical. On deck, a junior sailor stops for a moment near the rail and looks out across the Atlantic. There is no visible sign of what happened here. No smoke, no wreckage on the horizon, no mark on the sea. But somewhere far below the surface, twisted metal rests in cold water. And above it, the carrier continues on the same course. At 0645 local time, the strike group resumes full mission profile. Aircraft cycle back into the air. Escorts rotate watch teams. Communications remain encrypted and minimal. There will be no victory announcement. Because this was not about spectacle. It was about defense. And the lesson is simple. Inside a U.S. carrier strike group, there is no single point of failure. There is sonar layered over sonar, countermeasures layered over maneuver, interceptors layered over steel, aircraft layered over surface combatants. 1 inbound system tests a ship. 3 test the entire network. Today, the network held. As the morning sun rises higher, calm light spreads across gray decks and quiet radar arrays. The carrier moves forward at steady speed. No deviation, no announcement, just presence. And somewhere far from this ocean, in a secure operations room, analysts will study the acoustic record of those 3 launches. They will measure every second. They will map every bearing. They will examine every response. And they will understand what the submarine learned too late. Inside the screen, nothing moves without being heard. Inside the screen, nothing launches without consequence. And when danger closes beneath the surface, the answer comes just as fast.